Does anyone have any other questions about Build Your Life's work, though, before we get going? Okay. All right, we'll take a look at it, and if you guys have continuing questions.
I have another question, though, while we're talking about extra things.
Yeah.
I really like that health unit, that nutrition and meditation and all that kind of stuff. Will there be another startup time during the summer for another? When is that going to start? You know?
Oh, for wellness? Yeah, wellness is awesome. We're looking at an intensive date because that's what you'd want to do. You wouldn't want to do like the full length wellness program because it teaches a lot of like the same core coaching concepts. You'd want to do the intensive if you do. So what you should do is email Amber and let her know you're interested. Do you have Amber's email? Email Amber and let her know you're interested in a wellness intensive this summer because she posted in the ALC Facebook to let people know like we're looking at this one, and they're also doing a sports psychology intensive as well, like the add-on for things. So okay, does that answer your question, Paul? Do you have Amber's email, or do you want me to send it to you? You got it? Okay. All right. Does anyone else have any questions about anything else before we check in on designing the future? Okay. All right. Well, last week we did future pacing and self-alignment. What did you notice this week, maybe in relation to those concepts, or if you didn't notice anything with those, what maybe stood out to you with the reading this week, or anything else that you want to check in on?
I can go.
Thanks, Andrea.
Let's see. I met with my client yesterday, and I would say just in general, I'm becoming I feel just super confused about her, about why she's doing this with me. She just seems so lethargic and unmotivated. I mean, she's just it's like she's with me for a little bit, but I would say for the most part, I just really don't know how much she's getting out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Hang on a second. Can you guys, I need mental space. I don't know. I just feel really confused about the whole thing. If it's helpful, everything that we talk about, she just can't do. I mean, she's got this really, really, really intense procrastination thing going on. Mm-hmm. And she procrastinates, and then all of her work builds up, and then she has taken another Adderall to kind of compensate for, it's like all this coaching is actually backfiring on her. It's like she's becoming aware of all this stuff and maybe aware of, even the positive stuff. She's just like, I want to go abroad. But it's she wants us so badly that she's willing to take Adderall. So we had a long conversation. I did coach her on some of the things you suggested last week, Hannah. Just through the Adderall. And if she had looked it up, she knew everything about it. She knew exactly what it did to her brain. She knew exactly the neurotransmitters that were being released. She knew everything about it. She wants to go to a psychiatrist to see if she can get her own prescription. But she suffers from depression, not ADD, which is what Adderall was for. Anyway, but they just had moments in the session where I was like, you're not getting anything out of this kind of feeling.
Yeah.
It's like she is with me, but then when she's not with me, she doesn't. I just don't know if she's internalizing anything. So I did a little values exercise with her. I also did the negative positive assumption flow thingy with her. That was pretty cool. But again, like, we started with this negative assumption about herself. And then when we tweaked it to the positive, she was like, I don't know if I like that. I don't know if I want to be that positive person. It's like she enjoys being sort of like this negative version of herself, this negative depressed version of herself. You know what I'm saying? It's like, so it's just been really interesting. I mean, I've had several like thoughts of like, you need to stop with her. She's not progressing. But then it's like, no, I like her. We enjoy our time together. But I don't know. It's interesting. I guess I keep going back to like, you know, maybe a paid client, it would be different. Or maybe I just hit someone who just suffers from depression too much and is not able to really get the full benefits. I can't be her therapist. Can't be her psychiatrist. So that was my little, I don't know.
Have you asked her, like, what are you getting out of our time together?
No, I haven't. I've asked her other, like, big questions like that, but.
Yeah. Well, I had a similar conversation with Paul, like, you know, if you're doing this for free and if it's not benefiting you or helping you grow as a coach, there's no reason that you have to continue. You know, if it's not working, just like if a paid client, you know, because if she's not in a place to be coached, then it's not going to really benefit you to try and coach her because this is going to be a recipe for frustration, you know.
I think she would say, like, oh, yes, I'm gaining awareness of myself. You know, I think she's pretty smart. Like, I think she would be able to sort of convince me. I think she enjoys our hour together. You know, but I'm not seeing any, like, we're done, then we're done. And she's just the same old, you know, I'm not seeing, it's like, you know, all the check-ins, she's not, she's not doing anything we talk about ever.
Right.
Got this intense procrastination thing. She's got this boyfriend that doesn't go to school, is not helping her, just giving her Adderall. So, I don't know. I think she would convince me that the time was valuable with her, but
right. Well, then you can then I would say, well, you're not doing any of your action steps. So what's the disconnect? You know, I would have a conversation with her, like, what you know, kind of reestablish, like, this is what coaching is. You know, do you want something out of this? You know, because if she just wants someone to talk to and doesn't want to do anything, that's not really, she's not in a place to be coached, and that's something important to discover. Because if she's not, then yes, it may be beneficial for her to, like, talk to you and get, you know, feel like, you know, you're listening to her. But I mean, it has to work for you too, because this is, you know, your time too, and, you know, you want it to be beneficial so you can practice coaching. So you want someone who's committed to the process. So yeah.
Sometimes I wonder if part of it is developmental. You know, she's like, she doesn't sleep a lot. She's yawning through all the sessions. She's like, that's a normal college thing to do. She's kind of like, you know, she's watching people. It just seems developmentally like pretty normal to be kind of like, I don't know, sort of half there, half not. It's a long time to focus. An hour is a long time to focus.
Yeah. Or maybe even try to have like 45-minute sessions with her, half hour. But I would have the conversation like, what are you actually getting out of this? You know, if she says it's valuable, like, I mean, because you want it to serve you too. And it's really hard to have a client who's not ready to be a coaching client.
Yeah. So. I think she needs a therapist for some aspects, and I just can't. So anyway.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Well, thanks for sharing. Let me know if there's anything I can do to support you, or if you have questions that come up. But I would definitely ask her, like, what are you getting out of our time?
Okay. Thank you.
For sure. All right. So, Stuart, we're just checking in on if you noticed anything this week in relation to the exercises last week. So, future pacing and self-alignment.
about that.
You can think about it for a second, and I can ask someone else if you want.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Paul, what about you? Did you notice anything this week?
Yeah, a couple things. It's cool I mentioned Happy Henry Hat because getting recharged, getting back to school, kids are recharged, everyone's happy. It's easy to bounce off all of that joy. And on April 28th, and I'm the guy that does this. Every high school, middle school in the district does a day without hate, and so I get all our National Honor Society kids on it, and this whole month they design all this stuff to convert the school for just one day, with banners all over that have these cool peace quotes and balloons, and mural gets painted, and a lot of great things, songs, and people are challenged in different classes to, bond together and create community. Lots of fun. And one of the things that everyone at the door in the morning gets greeted with a kiss, with the Hershey's kiss. And so I have a whole bunch of Hershey's kisses in my office. And so because it is Mr. Toad's Wild Ride through May, I just shared with my counselors, there's free chocolate in my office every day whenever you want it. I get a lot of fundraising for this, so it's kind of fun. I'm starting to throw it at them now because they're not coming to my office. And I know that it's super important for me to stay rested and good exercise and good shape, because it's sometimes the hours are long and you don't always get that in, but that really helps out. And when you come from that place, I've had some. I'll share one later because I actually did something with Future Self with a kid that was really interesting. But I know that I'm a far more effective counselor when I'm really balanced. And you said it to me, and then this was in regards to that last kid I was dealing with. I felt so tired, and he was not taking anything. And you said an empty cup can't fill an empty cup, or a half-empty cup can't fill a half-empty cup, or else it's really empty. So I guess I've learned a lot about the importance of recharging in ways that are healthy.
Yeah. Did you end up telling that client, like, see ya? Or what did you do?
I did.
Oh, you should email me about that. I want to know how it went.
It wasn't fun at all.
But how does it feel now?
I'm letting it go still. You grow as one of these coaches, and I probably could have said, I could have challenged him more. He's just extremely resistant, and I don't want to get into the whole story, but
yeah,
his mom understood. He was that confrontational kind of kid that, for many reasons, and long in his past, he's always been a little bit oppositional, defiant even. Mm-hmm. And so he wasn't ready for it. That's what I'm going to say. And he wanted me and Andrea, when you mentioned last week the whole stuff about tips for academic skills and stuff like that, I was giving him post-secondary stuff, what a gap year is, how to do SATs better, and how to look for colleges, apply to colleges, and let them know about the gap year and all that stuff. Well, it led us completely away from this coaching, and all that's all he wanted. And then he wouldn't meet me in the middle and do the stuff. So anyway, I feel fine enough.
Paul, is this the guy that we got the email about that you took? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks for checking in, Paul. Yeah, feel free to, if it would help, to just vent it out and give me an email. Or if it's not, don't rehash it. Yeah, let's just move on. Okay. All right. Well, Needy, anything for you in relation to what we learned last week, self-alignment, future pacing?
Personally in my life, as I was a demo client last week, So I was intentional about practicing my value and the process values. So I did enjoy a much more fruitful time with my daughter, and we spent every evening talking about what's happening and among her friends. And she had one of her friends over yesterday, and then her trio competition is coming this Saturday. So just catching up on what her needs were, how she's feeling, and we watched a couple of shows together. So it kind of it felt like a good week, and more fulfilling. And even at work, I was working with a lot of students, but two students in particular. I could have them go through this values exercise, and one of the students really seems to have been practicing that, and he just emailed me yesterday that how it had helped him do well in his exam and have a more structured week. So kind of, did see some progress and some results in this direction.
Oh, that's awesome. Cool. All right. Stuart, what about you?
One of the things I was learning this week, and it sounds like similar, just echoing some of the stuff that Paul and Andrea said, is like learning who's really ready for coaching, and sort of noticing that, it's the students that really are motivated to make a change, right? That they're not satisfied with something and they're open to that process. Because I was sort of implementing it as like, oh, this is something that could be useful for everybody at the school, but really, like, some people are like, I'm good with where I'm at, and so sort of centering my efforts on the students that, like, I'm not satisfied with where I'm at right now, and I want to go to this other place.
Right. Yeah, because when just normal clients, they want something out of it, and it's so much easier to coach someone who actually wants, like, is committed to the process and wants something out of it.
Yeah.
For sure. All right. Well, we have fun night ahead of us with Future Self. So we kind of touched the surface with this, with designing the future. But this is a really cool exercise. John, I know he says this all the time, like, this is my favorite. Well, this one he says really is his favorite exercise. But kind of been thinking about this. I'm not going to do a demo because it's something like that you listen to the demo with John and Alex. So we're going to have a longer amount of time for for practice coaching today. Because it is something where it gets really vulnerable, and like I wouldn't want you guys to have to like do it twice, because it gets really deep and vulnerable, and it would be hard to be able to do it twice, right? Because it gets to the place where it's, you're like visualizing and reliving and like seeing yourself into the future. So kind of along the lines of like future pacing or designing the future. This is something where you can just help you just kind of see where you want to be and see where you're at in the future. Like imagine that you're actually there and you've landed. A lot of room for imagination in this. And, it definitely, I don't know, I feel like it's a really powerful session. It's like simple, but if someone's committed to the process, it's really, really powerful. That's why we have a longer time. And so the steps I know are laid out here in the guide. Let's see, 224, they start through 225. So you're explaining this concept of future self, like this is you in the future. And really going through, and sometimes you can share examples from yourself. And if you've had other clients that are okay sharing. I know for me, when I did this initially, I named it like Hannah 2.0, which I think was kind of fun. So you guys can I mean, ultimately you don't have to come up with a really creative name. It's fun for kids to come up with like a really creative name. You know, like my thriving 30-year-old, or, you know, something that really like they attach meaning to, and it's unique and it's memorable. You know, so if, you know, instead of just saying, oh, my future self, you know, so that's encouraged, but don't get stuck on, oh, I can't find a super creative, fun name. You can just call it, you know, you 2.0, you know, or just anything else, or you could say future self. But for kids and students, it's really helpful to have that creative aspect, but you come up with that after you've been there, so you can kind of see like, what would you have named yourself, or what, you know, have pulling in characteristics of that. So this definitely gets to a lot of things. The biggest thing that you'll probably notice with clients is that when you ask them like what message, you know, your future self is saying to yourself, that's when you can expect it to get really emotional and deep. And that usually we should prompt some sort of action, you know. So for example, you know, I think when I did this one time, it was like, stop caring what people think or something, you know, and then like that action was telling me like, okay, I need to let go of holding on to just even a little bit of people pleasing. I don't know if I've talked about that before, but I used to be a really bad people pleaser. And so just even like the lingering, you know, just entertaining, oh man, if I only did this to help this person, then they wouldn't be mad at me and things would be so much better, you know, being all tangled in that, but it was stealing so much joy from me. And so my future self, I imagine, was like, stop caring. And then for me, it was like, whoa, I just need to let go. And, you know, it can get really deep like that. So usually at that part, and in the workbook, in the ALC workbook, that's where there's a prompt for the message to you, because that's usually a really important part. So you're talking about, you know, asking about like what they look like, where they are living, you know, what they do for work, what is their typical day. And your client has to be willing to participate. I mean, this is a imaginative visualization. So they have to be in that place where they're ready to do that. Because you're asking about a lot of things, like what are their favorite things to do? You know, what are their top values in the future? And then just saving the message to you till later, because they're kind of developing this picture of themselves in the future. And they might already be thinking like, whoa. And then when you get to that question, that's when it's, you know, very, this just can get very deep when we get to that. And so I think sometimes people like look at future self almost in like there's someone that's like there to tell me I'm sucking or something, you know, like sometimes I've heard that from kids before, like my future self is looking down on me, you know, or disappointed in me. But like, we wanted to think about it in a really positive way. Like this is your ideal future self. You know, this is like who you imagine becoming. And if they go on a negative spin with it, that can be really interesting. Like, you know, because you can talk about what are you doing now that would lead you to that, you know, and then like, okay, but let's see who you would like to be. Because if it's a negative, they obviously don't want to like end up somewhere not good in the future. So you could explore that, but then kind of try and revert it back to like, let's look at your ideal future self. Who do you really want to be? And definitely address, like, if they think that it's going to be like a negative, oh, like I'm going to be, you know, miserable working a 9-to-5 job, you know, like that's really interesting to explore. Like, how did you get on that path? Why would you end up there? So that can be really interesting. Any questions so far on future self? You guys are all just thinking about, what am I going to name my future self?
I think this is more vulnerable for adults than kids. Don't you?
It can be very vulnerable, I think, for everyone. Yeah, and they say, like, in the exercise 15 years, not a whole lot of people want to imagine themselves older, right? Right? Like if you're working with an adult, or I mean that's pretty. So if 5 years seems like a lot to you, like you could change it, or to kind of make it more comfortable for the client. But the kind of like suggest like 15 years if they seem really resistant to, like, oh, would it be helpful to look at like 10 years? So if there's something you can connect with, because like that part I have heard, especially, as we get older, like, I have a client who's 80 years old. So imagine yourself 15 years in the future, probably not the best thing to do. Or not the most positive. So other thoughts? Andrea, what are you thinking?
I was just thinking what Paul was thinking. Like, it does seem tricky, the older you get. Like, I was just thinking what I would say now would be really different than like 10 years ago. I just think the older you get, everything is just shifting and changing. And so in 15 years, I'll be like 60 something, 61. I mean, this is like freaky, I don't know. But I think it's easier when you're younger to really like, oh, this is what I want to do with my life. Whereas when you're older, it's like, you really want to like start making the most out of time you have left or something. I don't know.
Yeah. Then you can definitely shorten the time, but even if you are working with someone older, just imagine yourself looking even more amazing than ever. Like, and, it's like your ideal future self, so if ideally is like 5 years, I mean, that's, we can definitely do that. But, sometimes like even working with, 18-year-old, they're like, I don't want to imagine myself 15 years older. Like, I want to be young. Okay, well, imagine yourself young, but even better looking. And let's take you there. Because it's your ideal self. Mm-hmm. So even with an older client, you can, say, hey, let's imagine you look like, what would you like to look like? Kind of encouraging imagination.
No, I think it's a cool concept. I'm up for it.
Is everyone else up for it? Some people are like, no, to go in there. Needy's turned her camera off, so we don't know if she's up for it.
I can give it a try.
It'll be fine. But yeah, just definitely, come in knowing you just be vulnerable. And obviously, like, this is a space where people aren't going to go, judge or criticize or say, yeah, I don't think you would be doing that. You wouldn't be doing that. You just be, kind of separate from it and allowing them to really visualize and see themselves. And just encourage the imagination, because that just fills in the details. So commit to the process and just be able to fill in the details, because it's so cool to do this. But if it's, if there's pressure or if you're uncomfortable, then it's going to be really hard to do. So, and kind of looking at this, we're looking at being able to do a longer amount of time, because there is so much to this. But let's see. Stuart, do you have any thoughts on this so far?
No, I'm excited to try it. Yeah, I think I was just thinking, like, I'll just ask, like, how far in the future do you want to try it? We usually think in years. And we're thinking in weeks or months. So how many years? Because, like, at a certain point, like, we can't imagine that much time anyway. Like, so, like, whether it's 3 years is a really long time, 5 years is a really long time. So whether it's 5 or 15, it's kind of, I don't know how much it really hurts the exercise by being a shorter.
Yeah, I don't think it does. So you can say, the kind of like the standards 15 years. What, like, how far in the future would you like to go?
Mm-hmm.
And I do want to point out, it's important to do a design the alliance moment. Going to, like, I know this is a vulnerable space, stepping into this, how can I best support you, as a coach, kind of stepping into this and kind of do that back and forth. And just like you were saying, Stuart, like, yeah, what do you want to, like, how many years do you want to go in the future? Like, how far in the future do you want to go to meet your future self? I know for me, I'm like really curious, like imagining even like a couple of months from now, honestly, because I can't know what, like, I mean, I've never had a kid before. So I'm really curious about that for me. So just kind of meet your client where they're at. So yes, the exercise does stay 15 years, but it's kind of like, like you're working with a teenager too. Because that's like after, kind of thinking like after college and you're established and maybe you have a family, that's kind of like different. So definitely have the design alliance moment. And then lead them through the exercise. And then after that is when you create kind of a nickname for your future self. And then from there, you create a well-designed action. So like, as you're been thinking about your future self, or been asking yourself, what would your future self do? Like what you could that could be an action step. Just like, what would my future self do? If there isn't something that comes out of like the message that your future self has for you, like for me, it had been like, stop caring what people think, For me, that was more of like, be really intentional about letting things go instead of embracing them. And that was kind of like an ongoing thing. So that was something for me. So it depends on everyone. And if the designed action is just like, I just want to be aware, and they just like write a sticky note of their future self's like nickname or something to remind them of like, this is where I want to be. It really doesn't matter. It's just, definitely having it be whatever would be most beneficial. And that's why it's so important to just have that moment of, how can I support you? What do you want to get out of this time? And then be able to do that. So the exercise is pretty straightforward. So you just want to both commit to the process, have that moment, make sure that, anything else from the day is kind of shaken off so you can just really focus. You can even invite your client to take a couple deep breaths and close their eyes. A lot of people close their eyes, so you could turn off your cameras if you needed to. Because I know it's kind of weird if we're like, hey guys, I'm going to talk with my eyes closed during this. But it can be, help with like just really focusing. And then just take them however long in the future. And then walking into a cafe and sitting with you. And then, asking the questions. So like, what do they look like? What kind of clothes are they wearing? Where are they living? So the questions are kind of bullet pointed, but go with your intuition too. If you're like, oh, what kind of drink do they want to order from the cafe? You could ask stuff like that too, and follow your intuition, but just make sure you ask the message to you towards the end, after they've developed more of a full picture. Does that make sense? And then from there, just follow the steps of like the nickname, and then from there is, a well-designed action they can take based on your time together. So we have a little bit smaller of a class tonight, as you guys noticed. So let's see. Are you guys, I know this is going to be like kind of a deep conversation, so I don't want to like be somewhere I'm not wanted while you guys are doing this. So does anyone like have a preference? Like, no, Hannah, don't listen in on my my future self exploration, or like what would be most helpful for you guys? Let's have a little design the moment. Doesn't matter.
I don't mind.
Does anyone mind? I can just be there for help too. I'm not judging. So it automatically put the guys with the guys and the girls with the girls, but do you guys want to do that, or should I mix it up? Doesn't matter? Doesn't matter?
What's your thought there? I'm just curious.
Well, it just automatically did it. So
okay.
I don't know. But I know some people still haven't worked with you. Have you guys all worked, like Needy and Andrea, you guys worked together before? And I don't think Paul has worked with Needy. So, well, let's mix it up, just because. Yeah, sometimes randomizer is not so random. Okay, so I'm going to pause the recording, take a collective deep breath. All right. Well, I want to thank you all for being vulnerable, because I know that it gets really deep and emotional, and yeah, I appreciate all of you. You guys all have amazing stories.
Yeah, before we went into that, I was like, "What are you talking about, man? Like, you know, I've never done it before." And Alex and John's wasn't really necessarily like that. So yeah, but now I get it. Yeah, yes. I think it brought up stuff for both Andrea and I.
Yeah, sure. So we can talk a little bit about how the exercise went. I know that it gets really deep, so I don't want to be like, "Hey, let's rehash everything in a in a summary." But if you do want to share something, so like even like the name of your future self, not the name of whoever you worked with future self, it's up to you with what you want to share, or just your thoughts on the exercise, or if it's helpful to just go off on something else, just kind of your takeaway from tonight. So we'll go around.
I think it's an exercise that I really want more practice with, because it seems like an exercise. It brings up so much, and there's so many different directions that I could have gone. It was like it felt like there were so many branching paths, and I only took one. And I think if I had more experience, I'd know like, oh, this is the question. This is really, or like maybe you could talk a little bit about like what sort of the end goal is, maybe. Because maybe I didn't have that in mind well enough to know what questions to ask Andrea to get to the main value of the exercise.
Did you ask her what she wanted to get out of the exercise?
No, that's a good place to start.
Because then you know what she's needing. So maybe she's like, oh, I just want to kind of envision myself, and like she would know what she's needing, and then the idea is to come away with a well-designed action based on maybe what the awareness they gained about their future self. But I would always ask the client, because sometimes it's like, oh, I just want to go there, and I want to like bring something back that helps me relax in my present, or you could after you kind of explain it, find out what they want, like what they need out of it. And then that'll help you in guiding the questions. And sometimes maybe someone's just like, I just want to talk about this and explore it without any pressure of an action step.
Anna, can somebody answer that question if they have never experienced the exercise? Like if they don't really, can they answer that question of what do I want to get out of it if they don't?
Yeah, that's a good question. So what I would do is explain to them the kind of this concept of future self, and this idea that, this could help you gain more awareness on where you're at now, or build excitement, for the future. And you could ask, like, have you ever imagined yourself in the future before? And then you're saying, okay, so what benefit could you see in imagining yourself? So you can kind of lead them into it if they are like, what do you mean future self, especially if it's a younger kid. Or you could just say, the idea, the kind of the plan here is that you'll come out with an action step based on your like learning something from your future self today. So you could just tell them that, especially with like someone younger who doesn't have awareness or can't verbalize that. And then you're like, you can check in like, so, do you want to take an action based on what you learned today? You could see if that's what you want, because that's the general idea, but you can let them know, hey, this is kind of the general format, but it's not forced. It could just be, the goal is to just explore. Your cat is cute. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does.
And they'll explain it, and you that's why it's important to give examples like of yourself, or like if you have other even made up examples of like, oh well, so and so, did this, and you obviously can't share about other clients unless you have their permission, but you could make up some stuff like, oh, so and so. I had to imagine about, you can use my example, went to the future to kind of see herself, and then her future self told her to stop caring so much about what other people think. And then in the present, she felt like I need to take some sort of action and not caring, what people's criticisms are of me or something like that. So that's kind of the idea. It's like you'll learn something new from your future self. So you can give them examples. But you can also say, hey, no need to action step. We can just explore and see what comes up. Does that help?
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Andrea, is there any takeaways you want to share personally from tonight?
I don't know. I guess I was a little bit surprised that I found myself thinking about. So I was sort of like landing on things that, like at the time that they were happening, weren't really profound experiences, but then like on reflection, they were actually sort of represented something really much larger. I guess it's hard to, does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So we lived in Aruba for a year, and at the time it was like a pretty difficult year, and for some reasons, but then just kind of reflecting on like who I was, I was like using parts of that in my future self. So that was really surprising to me, like pulling from a place that I actually want to recreate. At the time it wasn't hard. So that was really interesting for me. And then, yeah, I guess I was taken aback too by how deep it really can go. It can bring up, it was good. It was good to have a longer session too. I liked that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can really take your time, and it's not like, okay, hurry up, like go here with me. Because it's a really hard thing to do in 15 minutes. But
I like talking to Stuart because he takes a lot of time to think about like the questions, which like almost gives me permission to take time to think about the question. So it really does like slow down the whole process. I feel like his ability to really like take space and time to think through it is helpful to me, like as the coach. It's like, okay, I can really be thoughtful here as well. So that's really that was good practice, a good reminder to just, it's okay to have silence and space.
yeah, and actually that's something I had to work on as a coach when I was first starting, and like John would put it as like you're holding space for your client. Like your pause isn't just like pausing, you're like actually holding space, and kind of that idea of like they're processing, you're just kind of like here's some space, to room to like work through this. And so kudos, Stuart. Good job on that. And feeling that as a client, that's a good reminder for all of us, because sometimes it's like, oh, I had the question, but when we allow that space, now as a client just how important that is, especially when it's something deep.
Mm-hmm.
I was holding space for myself because I don't have experience with it to think of the next thing. So I'll have to remember to actually hold my space for the client the next time when I do know what question I want to ask.
Yeah. Space for you is good too. Then you can ask even more powerful questions. Yeah. Awesome. I know John used to have me like, okay, count to 10, then ask your next question. Because I'd be like, oh, this, so. All right. Stuart, did you have any other thoughts on this exercise?
Not right now. So what I might listen and come up with something in a minute.
Okay. All right. Paul, how was it for you?
A really vulnerable thing. I'm always so emotional, so I got emotional. Needy was very grounding, and it's really great to be with you, Needy. She set it up so that we would start, since we've never even met with each other, what is this now like? And I think that was a way for her to identify, I don't know, at least what I'm going with is you can kind of identify whether a person is in their being sense more, if they're more of a being sense, and Needy is like that, so grounded in her inner. And me, I'm a doer, and I have all these plans. And it kind of rolled out that, like you said, Andrea, I had spent 2 years in Belize, and I found myself at that time in my life saying, wow, I don't think life could ever be better than living in this place and having this community. And I did start creating that kind of world in my future where some of those values that I had in my past that I so cherished and I know that are always a part of my life in one way or another need to be a part of my future. This is very much about finding your truest values and your truest self. And when you're living in the present and you're starting to reflect on, gee, does my present really have those kinds of things? And your answer comes up like, well, it falls short. What can I do now? I started thinking about, oh boy, I have to do all these things to get to that future place. And so it did start. I caught myself in 3 different spaces, the now, the intermediate steps, and over here. And so I'm sort of dancing through everything. And I thought it was really powerful. And it was really powerful to get to know Needy like this, because the type of, all right, I'll tell you my nickname. I want to hear everyone's nicknames, okay, please? Because if I'm going to share this, you've got to share yours. I said that I was the love infuser, but I'm okay with that, sharing that. It is what I try to do. I just think I will be less emotional and calm about it when I'm older and insightful and, part of communities where that's happening more. And I also think that's why the south of the border feel makes it a more natural fit, because I saw that sort of great collaboration in small communities where community mattered most. So, and then to listen to Needy's journey was just wonderful. So I really enjoyed, and I hope I held good space for you, Needy, as you
Thanks, Paul.
you're such a different soul than me, and I really admire it. So
Thank you.
that's about all I got.
Yeah, I enjoyed my session with you too. Although initially I was anxious about, being vulnerable and then sharing, but getting in conversation with Paul, it was so easy that I didn't even realize I was sharing without even thinking twice, so it just flowed very naturally, and I think we are 16 or 17 weeks into this training, and this is the first time that I got to interact with Paul, and I already feel that I know him a lot, and that sense of connection with him. So yeah, I think I enjoyed this exercise, and fast forwarding into future, it's nice. I mean, what I took away was your values plays such an essential part in your life that even when so all your actions are guided through your values, and if you have clarity of your values, and if you're then kind of seeing your future self is not very very much different from your current reality, because when you talk about future self, you're not you're thinking, and especially at the age that we are now, it's not about career, it's not about material aspects, but it's more about finding that grounding in life, or that sense of having arrived, or that balance. So I think the values exercise and then doing this, it's kind of it falls in line, and it creates a deeper awareness of oneself. So.
Do you want to share your name, your nickname?
Paul, do you remember? Serene. I came up with this name, Serene Nidhi.
You're already so serene, Nidhi.
That's the name that just flashed when Paul asked me to think about my future self name.
Oh, awesome. Stuart, Andrea, do you guys want to share your nicknames if you're comfortable?
Mine was Wise Stewart.
Mine was Free Andrea. I was just sitting here thinking my future self is like a much, much younger version of myself.
That was really interesting.
Like my 15-year self is like this, like super young. Like, it's really funny how that. Anyway.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate all of you. I wish I had a super cool name. All I have is like Hannah 2.0 from a couple of years ago. So I better come up with some homework. I'm going to give myself some homework because I want a name too. But one thing I wanted to kind of leave you guys with is just the encouragement to not only with your clients, but with yourselves. Separate the judgment from like your present or your like past so that you can dream about the future. Because so many times it's like, oh, that wouldn't work. Or it's almost hard to let go of like the realities, but almost you need to let go of like judging where you're at right now so you can dream. So I just want to encourage you guys with that. Just thinking like, what would it look like if I was totally not judging where I'm at right now, or all the different things, and just let yourself dream. So just food for thought.
I don't know if you want to hear now. I know we're after time. I'd be happy to share it. I got to do this exercise with a kid today. Or yes, actually it took 2 days to get through. I spent 3 hours with this kid when he came back. Do you all want to hear it now, or I can honor our time and,
I'm up for staying. Is everyone else up for staying? Of course we want to hang out.
So this kid comes in my office Monday morning, first client of my day, shaken, 17-year-old boy, tears in his eyes. I've always known him as a fragile kid, looked a little depressed, uncertain, wants to be a nurse, always wants to help people, very sensitive soul. He says, Mom woke me up last night at midnight and screamed at me over and over, I need your phone, I need your computers, I need to investigate the number that I just received. She received the same numbers over and over again 3 years ago when he had met another woman online through video gaming with this woman. And she's in New Zealand, and they formed a loving relationship. She was 21 at the time, he's 14. She had a son, and he was like, I still love you, and I want to get to know you. So he has a long history of a lot of isolation. His dad absolutely hated him. He felt like a loner. He lived like a loner. He was actually so angry and in his shell that he had gone from being an honors bright 8th grader to a flunked out freshman, sophomore, placed into a virtual academy to go online for his schools, where he created a threat assessment and was put in a mental facility and was really turned into this interior person that just couldn't get out. And all he did was live out this connection with this one woman. That's all he had. And yet at the same time, his dad was a conspiracy theorist and believed that not only the woman, but this phone call from San Diego that came in was also some other, like ISIS or something. And so this kid is absolutely rejected, and everybody else is scared of the only connection he has And so I sat him down and said, all right, let's go there. Let's go. You want to marry this woman? Let's go to New Zealand. I'm going to have you bring in the John who's in New Zealand right now, and went through all these future questions to allow him that freedom of being where he wants to be. And it gave him such joy, and he knew what he wanted, and he knew everything about the flowery shirt and the sandals and the beach, and his nursing is good, and he's taking care of these people. And I said, what's your nickname? And he said, Chiller. And it was really cool to get him there to recognize that he could get to a place in his life where he's not so depressed anymore, where he's relaxed, serene. And I said, I'm jumping a lot of things, but finally he said, I said, what's the message for yourself? He said, what does Chiller ask you to do right now? He said, keep it going. He's begrudgingly getting to graduate, but he will. And do the right thing. And we talked about the victim that he was and the persecutors in his life. And eventually the Chiller said, stop being a wuss, And so I said, we're locking your computers up in my office. We're going to call your mom in tomorrow. We're going to have a conversation with her about all this, because you said you wanted my support, and you need my support. And I can be an objective person to hear the conversation that you're going to say. But I'm going to call you. I'm going to call your mom right now, and I want to hear what she has to say about what's going on. And maybe we'll talk again at the end of the day. So I called mom, and oh my God, her story was like all true. Very scared, of course, because it's this whole internet world. And who are these people? And how do they know that they might be abducted when he gets to New Zealand from this guy from San Diego? And he had lied that he had been talking to the people in San Diego. And he has a wedding ring on his finger. And I didn't even notice it. And she said, I wouldn't care if as long as I know that everything's going to be okay. So I know the name of a private investigator in our district who does with juvenile court offenses with cyberbullying and things. And they had actually I had him at a coffee talk earlier, and they went to the coffee talk because of this very thing. So he knew him, the mom knew him. And by the time the mom and the son, and it was it was so painful to see them together, breaking into his world. And having him have to say to mom, I told him that I did pull him in at the end of the day and say, look, mom really wants this kind of investigation to happen. And I know you don't, but, when you look at all the things that, and I've had to be, this is my counseling self, not coaching, about trying to pull out it all. But look at how stabilized she's been for you, and you've been able to have this education, all these things. Could you at least offer her one investigation of finding out who the San Diego number is? And we'll leave. And I that was enough to get him thinking, like, okay, I know where this is going. I can get my computers back tomorrow, and mom will be here. And I said, let's not even go online tonight. Let's go outside. Here's this interesting book. It's nice and short, and just read it, because I know he's a reader. And he did all that. He comes back. Mom comes back early in the morning, and by the time of that conversation was over, he was willing not only to have the investigation happen with the San Diego number, but also for the detective to look at the New Zealand number. And it was really, we talked to Chiller that day too, and what he would say. And he was so angry that day. Chiller had nothing to say. And I said, what do you have to say? He goes, I just need to keep going with all this kind of thing. And he did. And, on the way out, they walked out in the lobby, and I saw them hug, which was absolutely amazing. I didn't even want to stay for it, but it was like, that was some neat work based on him gaining some more personal power from going into his future and saying, all I need to do is get going, and trusting that if I know that my person in Australia or New Zealand, they're going to move to Australia, is true, then I should let go of some of this and give my mom some time. I mean, that investigation, and give her, trust her and respect her enough that, things good things can come from that. So it was incredibly powerful to pull that boy in by the kind of confidence he had when he saw his future could be possible.
Wow. Thanks for sharing, Paul. Yeah, it can be life-changing, just that power of just imagining. And that's a crazy situation. It sounds like you're right. There's a lot of different things going on there. but just the fact that that awareness, opened his eyes. That's such a cool thing. Thanks for sharing. All right. Well, I appreciate all of you. And I hope you and your future selves have a wonderful week. We're getting into inner critic next week, so that's going to be interesting, and we're going to learn a lot from that one too. So I look forward to that with you guys. In the meantime, let me know if you have any questions or need anything this week. And I'll look forward to seeing you guys next week. All right. Bye.